maybe this was just affecting the agricultural sector, it was just impacting the farmers. Then towards the end of the year, we started hearing of a flock of locusts that had been sighted from Yemen coming all the way to Somali. And within no time, they had already moved into Kenya and they were eating everything in their wake. While we were just wondering what does that mean to our livelihoods and to our economy, the next thing we heard, there was this story from Wuhan, which I think began in December, but it came into the global circles or the global media platforms sometimes towards the end of December, January. And for a moment, it didn't feel like it was anything big until when we started realizing that the problem was moving out of China and it was coming into Asia. It was the rest of the Asian countries. It was coming into the Middle East. We started hearing of cases in the US. We started seeing things in Italy. And all of a sudden, people started complaining about planes landing in Kenya from China and Germany and Spain. And within no time, the first case for COVID-19 was recorded in Kenya. And from the day that was recorded, life has not been the same. And I believe that is the reason we are here, because we realize our careers are not going to be the same. The workplace is not going to be the same. But even before we talk about COVID, it's just important to realize we had already started seeing certain things, especially in the Kenyan corporate space, which I think will also be significant to discuss at this point in time, because our economy wasn't performing well. We already, from last year or even 2018, we started seeing a number of organizations laying off their people, cutting down on some of their spending. And it created a lot of worry, especially amongst those of us who are employed. But I think there is something that the corona or the COVID pandemic did. It just came to drive the last nail in the box or in the coffin. And so here we are seeing things that maybe some of us had never seen in our lifetime. We don't know how long it's gonna last. We don't know how we will look like when we come out of it. We don't know how the career world or whether we'll still even have our jobs. And I think by the end of this conversation, we will be in a place where I strongly believe we will be operating out of understanding more than operating out of or in fear. Because one of the things that I've realized at this point in time, the bosses, the employers, the employees, everybody's in fear. Organizations are closing down. People have started working from home. Sorry, that's a flu, not a corona. And we have started seeing even cases of mental issues. I mean, the other day I was watching news, and it wasn't just in Kenya, it was globally, when it was being reported that domestic violence is on the rise. And you're wondering, okay, for how long? If this thing persists, we have already started hearing cases of people going bonkers. People just don't know what to do. There is a lot of tension, lots of anxiety, little money to spend. And in the midst of all that, domestic issues have also come up. So the question is, how do we navigate this as professionals, as people who either have just joined into the corporate world and all of a sudden you're staring at a possibility of losing your job, or maybe you've been in that corporate space for quite some time, and when you just felt you're stabilizing and you're starting now to build something of substance, all of a sudden it looks like the foundations are creaking. So the big question then is, how do we manage this? And I believe part of the team, the panel that I've come on board with, will be helping us through this conversation so that at the end of the day, we shall have some light at the end of the tunnel, as much as we know the tunnel is still very long and we don't even know which part of the tunnel we are in, considering where we are with the COVID management within our country. And so what I want to encourage all of us is we have questions that we'll want to ask. I know we cannot unmute all our microphones. That will be a little bit chaotic. So what I will ask, and I can see within the chat, there are already 36 chats. Okay, let me begin and just see what I could pick, or maybe even before I pick it, let me just first ask, let me engage Timothy Thaiting'a.
Yes, Steve.
Briefly, just share with us, what is your perspective in light of what is we are currently going through, COVID-19, career development?
Thank you, Steve, and thank you all. The Rotaract Club from Langata, I think this is actually a very good panel that you've actually assembled here, because I believe we actually have, I mean, there are quite a number of people here whom I can see some of my former colleagues, and I can see the wealth of experience they carry. And I'm sure even in your individual capacity as a members of this club, I know you have actually a lot of ideas that you're exchanging amongst yourselves. But certainly one of the things that I know about everyone here, we are worried, or we're in a very, can I say, we're in charted territories. I think these waters are not marked at all. So what is my perspective about COVID-19? The first thing that comes to me is actually, it's a pandemic, but I think over and above that, it has also induced a coma of sorts into our economy. And not just the economy in Kenya, but actually the global economy. So certainly, there's actually like two aspects that we're actually dealing with. And unfortunately, they have demutualized themselves. They have actually separated themselves. There's a medical effect and there's an economic effect. So today, I think all those people who probably read some columnist called David Lee, he had actually done an article to say he hopes and prays that we can actually dodge the pandemic bullet, but certainly I don't think any of us will be able to dodge the economic bullet or the impact of this COVID-19. So certainly I think that for me is actually the aspect I hold to say, while maybe we may not be affected from a health perspective, I think the areas of business, the areas of how we engage ourselves in economic activities, we are going to be impacted in one way or the other. The very basic example I can give is actually, I was just thinking of it, and maybe it might not be the very good example. Think of it that the bars are closed. So our breweries are suffering because they cannot actually sell as much. If you think of the raw materials, they're actually coming from, the beer is coming from barley. So even the farmer who is just actually back down the up country is actually going to feel the impact of this. So you look at the interconnectedness that we have, it's going to actually have a very big impact across the supply chain. So the fact of the matter is that the biggest question is actually how long will this last? And I think, Steve, you asked it as you introduced as you did the introduction remarks. I think that is actually the biggest question in everyone's head. How long will this last? And I think right now there's no one who can actually say they can predict with any level of certainty that this is going to last for so long. So right now there are three scenarios. I don't know. Sorry, somebody speaking? Okay, there are three scenarios that we may actually look at. We could probably have what we call a V-curve. A V-curve is where we go down and then rebound immediately. So there's no base at the bottom. We could have what you call a U-curve, where you go down, there's probably a bit of a base and then you go up. But it could also be prolonged and become something called an L-curve, where you've gone down and you stay there. And I think that would be the most, the worst case scenario that you'd actually envisage. So for now, Steve, I think the jury is still out, and we are sitting in some very uncharted waters and uncharted territories. And it will be very, very difficult to make any prediction at the moment. But certainly the effects of COVID-19 are going to be felt within the entire economy and certainly affect us at an individual level.
Well, when you talked about the V-curve, the L-curve, I'm like, I hope we don't stick at the L-curve. We'll rather do either a U or a V, because the reality is we shall have to hit a rock bottom, if I heard you right. So let me just introduce Emily. What are your brief perspectives looking at what is currently happening from where you are sitting at the Times Towers?
Well, I'm not sitting at Times Tower right now.
I knew that was coming.
But from what I have observed in the last 2 weeks, mainly I deal with excise factories, and one of the things that we have seen is that production from mid-March in most factories just took a nosedive. So when you see that in happening in factories and the taxes for that month have not been declared, you know that the next month you're going to really struggle. So from my desk, even here, I'm able to see the production levels of excise factories. When you analyze, you can see most people are struggling. They've removed their night production. I have seen letters from individuals asking for them to push back for their tax payments to be deferred. And I think we are really going to struggle in as much as we are trying very hard to ensure that revenue is collected, because that is what is depended on to keep everyone safe anyway. At the rate as which we are going, because of course we depend on the same economy to collect those taxes, we are going to have some suffering out of that, yeah.
Wow. When you hear somebody from Times Tower tells you you're going to have some suffering, then you beef up or you buff up. I think one of the reasons why I reached out to this panel is I knew we were going to have very candid, very authentic, very pragmatic conversations. And I think if there is one thing that I've picked from the perspective that Emily has shared is there has been a dip in production in most of the companies which they are looking at to support in revenue generation. And so very soon we'll be looking and asking ourselves, when there is a dip in production, what does that mean to the people who have been doing the production? And maybe that is the thing that has made us come here to ask ourselves, where are our careers now that the COVID is here? And once we have gone either through the V, the L, or the U curve, where shall we be? Will the production be back to norm? Let me ask my friend Mwaura Gidraph, all the way from Qatar. Briefly, what is your view now that you are in a foreign land? How are things going there in light of the corona pandemic?
Thanks, Steve, and good evening, all. I think I would want to echo what Timo and Emily have said on two different aspects. And one is in terms of, yes, we are in a crisis, that's inevitable, and we are in a very unique crisis because the crises that have happened prior have been crises driven maybe from a certain sector. For example, the last crisis that the world encountered was the global financial crisis, and that was driven by the banking sector. But this is a crisis that has been affecting the human capital. This is the people who drive all types of businesses in the world. And why it's becoming a very big crisis and unique crisis is it's not choosing which sector it is. It's not choosing which class of society it's affecting. It's not choosing which country it's going to affect. It's affecting everybody, the rich, the poor, everybody. It doesn't choose. And what that means is that all aspects of our economies will be affected because in one way or the other, each and every sector is driven by the human resource. And there are those that are very labor intensive, that involves a lot of human beings. There are those that are maybe machine intensive, that are driven by machines mostly, but also these machines could be automated, could be driven by human beings. So the impact of those ones might not be that huge, but the impact of the service industry driven by the human beings, the service industry, for example, here we'll give two examples of the hospitality industry and the airline industry. I think for the time I've been on this planet Earth, I've not encountered a situation where aeroplanes are grounded. They are parked even on the runway, meaning that they cannot fly. And countries have put restrictions on the airlines that they cannot fly. What that means is the international trade is put at a standstill. No movement of international trade is happening. And the only thing that's currently surviving is a cargo business that's transporting goods here and there using the airplanes. I was surprised to see today Kenya Airways converting one of the passenger flights into a cargo flight. That tells you how thick things are going to be. And so what that means is that all aspects of our economies will be affected. What is happening is that across the world, you'll find the government has tried to come on board and try to reduce the impact of the economy because of this crisis. And what is happening is that you'll find the central banks of different countries have reduced the rates. The government has introduced some emergency funds. They have introduced things we call the fiscal measures. These are the tax elements where the taxes have been reduced. But there's now the reduction, the proposals, and there's the implementation of it. How long and how fast these are implemented will minimize the impact of the economy. based on this crisis. The other aspect I would want to mention is in terms of how long this crisis will last. And as Timor said, that there are three scenarios that we are looking at: the V curve, the U curve, and the L curve. But what will determine the curve we are going to be in is how the international community cooperates and how the governments of each and every country manage this crisis. And what I mean by managing this crisis is that the only way out so far that has been determined will only be two aspects. One is what percentage of testing is being happening in different countries. Because without testing, you would not know the impact of your country. You would not know how many people are affected. So you would not know what kind of care do you need to put in place. What kind of public health measures do you need to place if you don't know the type of, the number of testing that is. I will give an example from where I am, where let's say over 30%, over 30 to 40% have been tested. And that has given the country a perspective of the impact or the large scale of these crises. So they're putting measures based on the statistics that they have of what they have measured. My worry in our motherland is in most African countries, you'll find the number of testing that has taken place is very small. And that's why you find the numbers in Africa are not that huge because the number of testing is very small. But as the testing increases, you'll find the number of cases increase. The other thing we'll have that will determine the kind of curve we're going to have is how fast are we going to get a vaccine on this virus. And there are so many tests being carried on by different companies. There's so many projects that have been carried on, but how fast we're going to get this vaccine is what will determine how fast we recover from this crisis. So basically, the longer it takes to have the vaccine, the longer it takes to recover from this crisis. The faster the government carries out the higher number of tests, the better they're going to know the statistics and the better they are going to know which measures to put in place. But in one way or the other, the economy will be affected both domestically and both from an international perspective.
Wow, thank you so much, Gidraph. Listening and getting to hear views locally, internationally. And I mean, thanks for representing us. You've always been a great ambassador. Let me introduce, I think I have another friend online. Lilian Bug, are you online? Hi, Lilian. Okay, I think she's not yet online.
I've just admitted her into the meeting. Please give her a few seconds to join.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. I'll introduce her later.
She's in now.
Oh, okay, she's in?
Yes.
Okay, Lilian, it's you were waiting to say hi. How are you? Lilian Bugwa? Okay, I believe she'll get to join us later. So let me introduce Faith Muthaura. Being in the banking industry, helping in the issues of anti-money laundering, and I think the financial industry in Kenya is significantly hit by the current events. Even listening to what Emily is talking about, the issue of low production, that almost means that there is little money or the cash flow in the economy is stifled. What have you observed in your work environment, Faith? Have people started working from home? Is everyone working from home? And how is that coming along? Hello, is Faith able to hear me? Okay, Edward, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Okay, maybe you'll take the question that I had asked Faith.
Okay.
Let me turn it back because you're in the ICT space. Faith is in the financial space, but specifically in risk management. Looking, because IT is one of the most critical, I'll consider it as an essential service within the organization. When many people are working from home, I don't know if you have the freedom of working from home, because I think that's one of the impact, or let me say the direct impact that we have felt of the COVID-19 scenario. So give us a perspective within your organization briefly. How is the situation? How many people are working at home? How is it coming on? And are you working from home?
Yeah, thank you, Steve, and everyone for being online. Now, first and foremost, I hope everyone is keeping safe and, basically taking all the protective measures to ensure your loved ones and your families are safe, even as we keep on praying that this issue will die out as soon as possible. Now, I like to say that Metrocram was my previous company. When I came to Kisumu, I began working with a company called United Millers. Now, United Millers is a grain, it's basically a miller of maize grain and wheat. In addition to that, we produce fat, soap, and we also trade in other small commodities. So as you would see, most of the products that we are selling is what is considered essential services. Looking at this whole COVID thing, what has hit me is the fact that the companies that, or rather the organizations that will be most hit are the organizations that are not providing what I would say in a loose term, non-essential services. There was a circular that was circulated by the government, and they listed there some of what they call the essential services, which involves medical professionals, national security, public health, licensed pharmacies, drugs, licensed broadcasters, Kenya Power, food dealers, and all that. Now, Steve, I will actually surprise you what I've seen in the last 2 months. We've actually recorded an increase in sales. Mm-hmm. It's because people want food. People want unga. People want maize meal and unga chapati, and we're supplying this to the supermarkets. And as soon as they reach the shelves, they're flying off the shelves as soon as they get there, because there is that issue of, where people, do panic buying because they want to stock because of the uncertainty fact. So for us, we've seen a bump in sales. How long that is going to last, I don't know. I don't know if, looking at the various supply chain issues, it's basically like a vicious cycle. We are producing so that people are able to feed. But what we have to produce, we have to use raw materials. And these raw materials or other inputs are coming from the farms. From the farmers. So for how long will the farmers be able to supply us with the maize? For how long will they be able to supply us with the wheat? If we are doing international trade and if that supply chain from international sources of maize and wheat, we all know in Kenya, for some reasons, we are still not able to meet our demands in terms of maize and wheat production. So if that supply chain is tinkered with, then that is going to cause a very serious problem in terms of food security in the near future. Hopefully the government is working on that to ensure that that supply chain keeps on moving forward. Now, on what I would say is considered non-essential services. My wife works with a company called Amadeus Global. Amadeus Global is an IT firm that provides ticketing services to all these airlines that you see around, Emirates, Kenya Airways, and so on and so forth. Now, that industry having been impacted, and as Gidraph said, the whole of the industry, the planes are grounded, there are no flights. If there are no flights, tickets are second line level. They've basically been told to work from home, and there's information circulating that some of the staff might have to be laid off because the company is no longer making revenue. In fact, they are considering a new model of working, whereby they're asking questions such as, do they even need an office? Because for the past 1 month that they've been running and operating, all the operations have been running, yet their core staff or the key staff have not been reporting to work. So from what my wife is telling me is that their senior most management is considering reducing the size of office space that they have in Nairobi and only keeping in Nairobi a very small footprint. If they can have people working off-site and from home and from different locations, I think that is the direction that they want to take. Mm-hmm. Now, here in Kisumu, things are very slightly different from Nairobi because to a large extent, you would say life is going on as normal. And what I want to begin with is looking at the people, the Juakali people or low income earners. You know, these are people who work in the Juakali sector. These are people who ride the border borders. These are the ladies who wash the clothes and, you know, these small jobs. Basically, for them, life has to continue as normal. And it's reaching to a point whereby, you know, you talk to somebody and they tell you, okay, so you want me to stay at home and die of hunger, or should I come to work and take my chances with this corona thing? So to them, they largely don't understand, or the impact of the virus is not translating to what they need to do, because they really have to go out and earn their living on a day-to-day basis. So the Juakali services and all these other small sector services, for them, really life is going on as normal. What they're doing is, if they need to put on a mask, they're putting on a mask. If the border guys are told, okay, don't carry 2 guys, carry 1 guy, and so on and so forth. But life for them is going on as normal. Now, the other thing I would like to touch on is how governments and basically the global economy will impact and how governments are going to respond to that.
Maybe now, Edward, allow me to interrupt you a little bit.
Yes, yes.
I will bring you in maybe in the second session just to give us a perspective from a global and a world government perspective.
Okay.
Allow me.
Stephen, you've muted yourself.
Mute.
Sorry, I thought I was doing an essential service there, sorry. Yeah, I just needed to introduce Faith Magadi. Is Faith with us online?
Yes, I'm online, Steve.
Yes, Faith, just share with us from an international or a development perspective, now being in the World Vision environment, we are looking at the NGO, we are looking at international perspective. How has this thing impacted jobs in your work environment and the way people are working?
Well, the NGO sector, Steve, has really been impacted. And one of the things that we have to realize is that NGOs are primarily funded. 100% of NGO budgets are budgets that are funded by external persons or external bodies. And the biggest donors of NGOs are countries. So Ministry of Foreign Affairs of different countries are the biggest donors to NGOs. So you'll find people like USAID, UK Aid, AUSI Aid, Swedish Aid, SIDA, they have different names, the JICA, the one for Japan. So a lot of, if you notice, the people who are responding to the corona pandemic are governments. And these are the people who are directly mandated with providing healthcare to their citizens. And so governments are the first responders to the pandemic. So what happens is, because governments are concentrating all their time and resources to responding to the corona pandemic, it therefore means that fewer resources are being directed to NGOs, which traditionally were recipients of this aid. So what is happening with corona is interesting. And corona, the pandemic has come in, and the coming in of the pandemic has not eliminated all other pre-existing problems. So communities that had poverty are still poor, if not poorer. Communities that had no water still do not have water. People who are in the refugee camp are still in the refugee camp. People who are displaced are still displaced. People who are victims of disaster are still victims of disaster. So the pandemic has come in and it has destabilized an already destabilized world. You know, we are already living in a vulnerable and unequal world, and then corona has now come on that background. So what is happening with the NGOs is that because of the funding that usually exists, things that used to happen are still happening. People who provided water are still providing water. People who are people who work in the field to stay in the field. Those who reside in the field and don't move around they were told to stay there, continue working there, stay there, so that the work can continue. So these are some of the contingency plans that were put in place to ensure that there are still some responses going on despite the pandemic happening. That is one thing. Another thing is there has been a lot of freeze of recruitments. If your recruitment, if let's say you are in the process of being hired, or you are in the process of starting your new job, or you are having conversations with human resource in different NGOs, there has been a freeze. For example, ours has had a freeze, especially for management levels, high levels. There's a freeze because, of course, the resources that will be needed to sustain high levels is a lot. People at the lower levels, people working in the field, volunteers, officers, we are seeing they have not been as affected. Now, what is happening in the NGO space is we are foreseeing a gradual effect of this virus to the work that we do. And the gradual effect is, if you are running a project now, it's still going to be running because the money for that project is already in your account. But what's happening is, in the next 6 months, in the next 1 year, governments are no longer going to be extending aid because they are going to be focusing their resources on recovery. I think it is Tim and the gentleman in Qatar who mentioned the economic effect of the pandemic. So governments are going to be holding money to sort of buffer their industries and sort of subsidize for their people to recover their economies. And therefore, it means that in the coming months or in the coming years, there will be a huge pay cut. There will be a huge budget cut in NGOs. So, but mostly what NGOs are doing is we are sort of tightening the belt. Yeah, we are sort of starting to question essential stuff and non-essential stuff. We have had a discussion in our offices around the globe where people are now being asked, do we really need to keep you on board? And there are instances where people have even been asked to lay out what exactly they do. Because if what you do and what John does and what Faith does and what Grace does is the same thing, and you're now all at home, then why can't one person do it? And then we let go of these other people. So these are discussions that are being had because, again, there's a lot of uncertainty and we don't know. Nobody knows what's going to happen.
So sorry,
Okay.
Faith, somebody interrupted. Just proceed.
Wow. Looks like somebody's getting beat. Okay, let's hope it's fine. So what's happening with the NGO sector is there is a lot of wait and see. There's a lot of tightening of belts in that we are cutting down to the most essential services, reducing the manpower. People being affected are in high levels actually as compared to lower levels. And another thing is the donor conversation, the donor engagement is definitely going to be affected in, I would not say immediately, but in about 6 to 9 months, I know there are donors that are already starting to have conversation to say, what can we cut out? What is essential and what is not essential? So yes, I think everyone is taking a beating from this pandemic. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Faith. I think you've brought it, especially from a development perspective. Let me introduce Angela. Angela, are you online? Wanjeri.
Yes, I'm here.
What is your view now from a consultant's perspective? Having set a business, having supported organizations, you have helped them position themselves better in the market. You help them make sure their brand are much more visible. What are you seeing? Is there light at the end of the tunnel, especially in light of our careers?
So can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so I think the initial reaction, let me call it a knee-jerk, right? Because as soon as Corona began, it was really like turning pages. You know, at one moment you're discussing with clients, you're building your business pipeline in terms of the potential clients you're going to have, and all of a sudden things just cool off because people are starting to watch their budget. People are starting to be very worried whether should we even be going on with this? And you know what, something, you see, for Timo, for Emily, this is KRA, they're gonna come pouncing on you, yeah, if you don't meet your taxes and all, and finances. So at times what we do is consider discretionary, right? So as a consultant, quite a number of opportunities have been put on hold, right? It's more like having those discussions is just considered, let's wait. And then we are going to wait until when? The other thing is, as the finance people will tell you, they're tightening the budget. Even where you had commitment with clients, what they're saying is that this is just not the time, let's watch and see. Now we do not know till when, right? Then of course there's a lot of confusion going on. Should we even be interacting, engaging with the market, if at all? Should we even be making the effort? Yeah, if you work in an agency, in an advertising agency or something, campaigns have been stopped. But you've asked me a good question in terms of, is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Because there are some organizations that we are talking with, and depending on their appetite for risk, and depending on how you negotiate with them, because here we're engaging in negotiations that, okay, what about we start to do some of these activities and maybe the payments can be in different ways. Yeah, because right now you might not be able to get too much. And all they're saying, okay, maybe this is an opportunity. Yeah, it is an opportunity to sort out those brand things that were not working out. It's an opportunity for us to look at our channels, for example, our digital, our website, our social media. Maybe that has been lax so far. So we are seeing some organizations, they are not many, but who are looking at this experience as an opportunity. Yeah, whether they are willing to spend on it is another question. But yes, they are there, though few. So the other thing that we are starting to see is, of course, the word is out there that digital is the way to go. But I'm looking at this as digital as a channel to the market. Yeah, I have a feeling that yes, digital as a channel to the market, that is key for the IT people and all who develop all these softwares and all these apps to go to market. For the social media, that is also a key channel being used right now. So for the ones who are already social media experts, because you know not every marketer is, yeah, I think this is a prime season for them, even as a consultant, as a third party. And of course for you, Steve, in your profession, and the others in the HR, we all know now that there's a lot of remote working. So I foresee that as an opportunity for also certain clusters of marketing. For example, social media, it could actually be cheaper for an organization to seek out someone who will help them run their social media ads, to run their Facebook ads, to run their LinkedIn, and maybe pay little at this time because there is more supply of labor at this point in time. So, however, I'm seeing that some things will still remain. Research will still remain because customers are becoming more and more sophisticated. You see, if we are doing marketing, we respond to customer needs, right? How will we know what these customer needs are unless a lot of research is done at this time? And also after Corona, people's behaviors will change. I posted an article yesterday on LinkedIn that I wrote that even when it comes to business development, we need to catch up. We need to keep up with what clients want, because remember, they are more informed. Remember, whoever never used digital channels, today they are using them. Remember, whoever thought they can't go onto video conferences. Look at us now. How many are we? We are on a video conference at 9 p.m. in the night. I mean, that will lead to certain customer demand. So even in the marketing space, we are seeing that people are starting to think differently, and we will need to adjust to what customers want. So that will have an impact on our means of communication with them. That will have an impact on our means of advertising, on our means of branding. Yeah. There's an article that is coming out on Monday from us, whereby the graphic designer is talking about even the colors we are using. Why use Corona colors at this time? Maybe we need warmer colors. We need to change our language and stop referring to Corona left, right, and center. And also our messaging should be giving hope and should be giving a certain level of inspiration. So it is a whole 360, and it's tricky because we are writing it right now, and we need to maximize the opportunities. As I can't remember the gentleman in Kisumu, what his name was.
Edward Ongeso.
Yes, Edward. there are essential services that right now they are thriving. I mean, if I get a client, good client in the essential services, we will thrive at this time, right? But then there'll also be a post-corona. So we're having to keep our ear on the ground. Yeah, you can't say that there is just no work. Now, this is the other important thing. We all have to, here I'm talking as a marketer, I'm talking as a business development advisor. We have to redefine that reward we are talking about. Because that reward might not come in terms of money, but it might come in terms of brand awareness. It might come especially with the way you deal with your contacts, with your relationship, with your, even if they did not convert that business, just don't lose that relationship. Because as I keep on saying, the sun will rise and you don't want to start those discussions afresh, right? So it is time we're also encouraging people engage with those clients, engage with those relationships you have. If you're in consulting, it's time for you to do thought leadership. Share it out there. It's time for you to grow your following on social media. It is time for you to talk to those people, get to understand where they are at. It might call for you to do a few free things. As sophisticated or not sophisticated language, you might just call it value addition to those clients. Right now, if you go charging people left, right, and center, they'll consider you very, very, very not human. I mean, at this time, right? But again, I say, we can't say that marketing, business development is all dead at this time, but it has taken a slowdown. And you know, for us, we say you've got to spend money to make money. But that money right now, Timothy and all, and Gidraph, and everybody else, they're putting a tight grip on it. So the spend is not as high, but I think it is a time for marketers to really just stand the ground, engage their potential clients, even engage employers and know, how can we add value? How can we be able to assist you at this time? Now, I can imagine maybe there are people on this call who are in some form of marketing and the organizations. Maybe your bosses are quiet because even nobody knows, you know, this situation is tricky. Nobody even knows. So I think it's just for us to be more proactive, and that is who marketers are. We don't wait. We don't wait for the market to tell us. We are proactive and we go, we research, we generate ideas in terms of what we can do. We know the confines. We are all social distancing. We are all doing all that. But what kind of ideas can we have just to engage? So as much as you can, I'd say don't go quiet. Yeah, find ways in which you can interact, and even in employment, engage with your seniors. Be proactive, but also decently proactive, if I'd say that. But I think it's not time for total silence from the marketing and business development there. I think we still got to try. There are still opportunities. Yeah.
Well, I think the tone of Angie is that there is still hope. It's not about going mute. Don't bury yourself. As much as it's a dark cloud, there is still a silver lining unto it. Let me just read a few things that I think some of us have been posting. There is something interesting here for all of us. Sorry. First, let me say congratulations. I can see we have 98 participants online. Huh? I think that blew off my mind. I was thinking we're just going to have around 30, 39 people. All the people, and I can see guys all the way across the country and even out of the country. I feel humbled by that participation. Karambu has just shared something. She says companies that have been the largest contributors to the government revenue, like EABL, are now vigorously doing online marketing for their products because bars where their biggest retail units are closed. They may sell in urban areas, but will lose the rural market plus persons who do not drink from home. Deals also affects soft drinks. Basically what Emily is telling us, this thing has had an impact on the volumes of sales, the points of sales, the consumers, the biggest consumers. And so organizations are even trying to find different ways of reaching those available consumers who are there. I saw something from Fatma. I would advise guys to, oh, sorry, she was asking all of us to send something. Again, another point, Karambu has been very active on the chat. He's saying pay cuts, laying off of staff leads in reduction of, this is significant. It leads to the reduction of pay as you earn collection, which was already happening from the first half of 2019-2020 financial year. A lot of SMEs were already struggling and there were lots of layoffs, which results to revenue loss. And this is the point where I bring in Faith. Faith, have you joined us online?
Yes, I am back.
Welcome. I hope nothing was burning in the kitchen. This is the joy of working from home. Now, Faith, share with us, you being in the financial industry, dealing with the compliance issues, how has COVID impacted your business from a career perspective, from an employee, from a human capital perspective? What are some of the new things that you are seeing? What are some of the good things that you are missing? What are some of the bad things that could be coming your way?
Right. So I think, from a banking perspective, I think for all banks and financial institutions, right now we are just looking out to adapt and be flexible in these changing times. We are not able to do business the way we used to do it. For example, if you to think about how we would lend to the corporates, then we'd have to go do searches, registration of documents, business visits, etc. And now it's time to just sit back and ask yourself, how then would you offer all possible services using digital solutions? Because we haven't been able to do all that. But then going back into what I do, which is financial crime, is that crime will continue even in these difficult times. There are people who will take advantage of what is going on. They will take advantage of the fact that we are working from home and we are using VPN, for example. Will we have phishing? Will we have our business emails compromised? From a money laundering perspective, will we have fake charity campaigns? Will we have people taking advantage of us? Yeah, and so as we continue to serve and provide services from a digital perspective, then as financial institutions, is that we need to find out digital and fintech solutions to monitor what is happening. And so this is a time which we have to do things differently and monitor things differently. When I think about the regulator, we look at, for example, our central bank. Our prudential guidelines were written in 2015. And at that point, we hadn't gone into digital and fintech. So then Njoroge has to sit back and ask himself, do the prudential guidelines, are they still relevant in this time when things are happening differently? So I think it's really been challenging, even as we talk about fintech solutions. It's not all financial institutions that are there, and maybe it would be good to hear, for example, from Gidraph, who is in Qatar, whether it is working well for them there, because I do know that in most African countries, perhaps you may not be ahead when it comes to monitoring of transactions, as perhaps maybe is happening in Western countries. Mm-hmm. I think also then working from home. I think for banks, it's been very challenging, especially for myself. I'm lucky to be working from home, but I think about the staff who are offering services in the front line. Sorry. Okay, for staff who are offering services in the front line and how then they have been affected. We have branches, for example, at the airport, which have had to be closed because we really don't have a lot of business happening there. And so it goes back to what a lot of us have been saying. Will we have people, for example, losing jobs? Will we have businesses downscaling? Etc. I think, Steve, that covers much of what I wanted to say.
Stephen, you're
Steve,
on mute.
you're mute.
Sorry. I like keeping quiet, so remind me when I'm too silent. Thank you for that. I was just saying thanks to Faith for sharing with us that perspective, and it almost ties into a question from one of the participants. I hope I pronounced this name right. She's called Nyadira. And she's asking, considering most people are working from home, will this bring a shift of how people work even after the pandemic ends? Clavis, are you online? I think you could help us just answer this, because I know you have been working from home for quite some time, but with the Corona thing, it's a different ballgame. Benard Davis.
Hi, Steve.
Hi.
Yes, things are not going to be the same going forward. Right now, most businesses have what they call business continuity processes. Those are being tested. Yeah, and if you had most companies, when they do things, from my observation, they usually do it for audit purposes, for compliance, to tick that box in when the auditor comes along and checks, do you have BCP? Is it done? Right now, it's being tested. One of our clients is a tour firm, and previously we had advised them they can go on cloud, whereby if they have a lot of clients, they can spin up more compute power. Later, they can spin down when they don't have. They didn't go that direction. Now they have equipment that they need to keep running, and IT staff they need to keep hired to keep on board. Even if now they're not having any clients. Things like that are now being tested. For example, there are people who have job roles that are they can easily migrate into online, working from home and all that. Mostly these are guys with who just handle reports, the high-end guys, and people who handle maybe small work, data entry work. But you find guys who are in the middle who have to talk to, you know how guys are organized in a cubicle. If you have an issue here, you talk to that person on that end, he works on that system. That is really being challenged. So in terms of working from home, what the question that most people are asking themselves, which job profiles are eligible right now and going into the future, which are eligible, and how do we make those job roles eligible? Because if I'm seated at home, which documents do I access? Which can't I access? Because the good thing of an office is that somebody walks in, works on some work, and walks out leaving their data and everything in the office or in office systems, or at least in a secure environment. But here you have somebody who is at home. We have issues of bring your own device. So things are changing a lot, and business continuity processes are being tested a lot. Businesses that were really not so keen on cloud technology are now rethinking that strategy. So there's a lot of changes. For example, now where even in terms of very simple things, I had a conversation with somebody saying, do they need this much office space? Because if you're still able to run and half of your workforce is not there, you need two, 3 floors. So a lot of things are currently managers are now, their eyes are being opened into the challenges that are there, the opportunities that lie there, and I think things business will not be usual going forward. We will have to change with the times, because people who are resisting change, it has been forced on them. That is what I can say. Change has been forced on most organizations at the moment. If you're not digital, if you're not on the internet, on social media, this change is being forced on you. Yeah.
Wow, that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Clavis. And maybe at this point, because I'll want to hand over this session to George in the next maybe 5-10 minutes, but I'll just want to bring in Dennis. Dennis is a lecturer at African Digital Media Institute. Their students, I don't know if you still have students, or do you have virtual students? Let me just ask that question. Maybe the students had begun working from home a long time ago. So Dennis, maybe the first question I'll want to ask you, and I'll pick from the conclusion that Clavis has made, that it's a time where those people who refuse to go in digital are being forced to go digital. Does going digital mean you have to be an IT person? And number two, how is this impacting the teaching profession?
Okay, this is a good question. So, and once again, thank you for inviting me to this amazing panel. And the feedback that I'm getting, like what I'm reading through the chat, it's really impressive, and everyone who's spoken before me. So to first of all answer your non-question before the questions, I do have virtual students. All of them have now had to migrate virtually, and I've spent the last 3 weeks actually managing a project, student project that was started online, and then they submitted their work last week on Tuesday afternoon, and we did the assessment together with other teachers, and even had somebody from France being able to attend one of our lectures and actually deliver some lectures online. So these are things that we have kind of been doing a bit, because we have a session, an online session with one of the teachers from a collaborating university in France called Rubica, for game development and animation, whereby we interact with them on actually an everyday basis in case of any support that we need, because, for example, gaming is a new industry within the country. So do you need, so I'll go with your first question, is whether you need to be IT savvy, some serious guru matrix kind of thing? No, you don't. All you just need to have is, one, you can actually just start off by having your phone. That is actually one first bit. Or uh, uh, if you do have the additional part of having a laptop or a PC, then that is something that you can be able to use, and you just need an internet connection, and that's it. And then just getting to know the virtual tools that are available. Some of them for the corporates who already have this kind of business accounts. You'll find that Google has a Google, what is it called? Google Meet, which is available, or Google. You can even use Google Hangouts to carry out meetings. Yeah, and you can even record those sessions, because that's actually what you're using with my students. We have an option of Meet. You can have a Discord, and you can also have Slack for just to put people in groups and be able to have various discussions that are segmented to something. So for instance, if I'm teaching you about math, English, okay, that's not what I'm teaching. But if you're having math and you should have different chat channels that somebody can be able to manage and be able to even give those discussions. So it's very easy for a student to go and I'm reading math. Okay, what did we cover last week? We just tap and we get to see the chats that you are having before. You can save that work. You can even have access to the videos at the end of the day. So just like some people, you can call it like creation of content, just like people who do YouTube videos, who keep on posting up their stuff. They need some additional stuff. Okay, of course you need a camera, and that's why I highlighted, having a laptop and having a phone. The basic thing that the phone has is everything that you need. It will have a camera with you, and it will have the microphone with you, so you have one gadget that you can be able to access basically everything. There are times actually I conduct my entire lecture session from just my phone, whereby I have done my slides, and then I can share screen and we can have a discussion, chat, and all. So when even having exams right now, so one thing that we were not prepared for, and what we were doing is we do have online exams, yes, at the end of the semester and at the end of the term. So what used to happen is, of course, everybody sits down, invigilator, are you checking, are you going online and stuff. So right now we've had to choose everything to be virtual. So, and what has happened is we have had to reshape everything that we have into like Google Forms or a Word document that you're given, and you have to return that work within 2 hours, such that you have to rely on the skill set that you have been learning. If you have been reading, if you have been going through your notes, then these are things that you would be able to remember. Otherwise, you'd find that you'd spend some extra time. And of course, there are also other resources online that can tell us, no, you just copied from somewhere. And of course, most of the time, the most friendliest page that everybody goes for information is Google, and the first that always comes up with of course, we'll get to know that those are things that have been taken from there. And at times, even the changes of how we even ask the questions have changed. This way, you actually get to see that people understand what the content is about and not just regurgitate just a definition. Like so that definition, how does it help? How does it apply? So that was on asking about whether you need to be an IT person and how has it affected the teaching profession.
Yeah, just briefly.
In our entire institute, everybody has, everyone has just had to get to learn how to curate the content that you have been teaching in class on a one-on-one scenario, and now have had to streamline it for e-learning. Because you'd realize it's very easy to gauge a student whether they're interacting, whether they're understanding what you're saying when you're one-on-one, just like you'd be in interactions with anyone. But when you're doing it virtually, it is a bit difficult. So you have to find other systems of engagement that will keep the students focus in what you're doing and not getting lost and not getting distracted with the things that are happening around them, and that they will continuously want to give attention to your work. So we've had to all undergo some training, go for online courses, and get those certifications. In fact, this right now it's a requirement for all our teachers to be e-learning certified from some courses that that have been vetted and said these are the ones that you need to get to learn from. So what I can say is, let me address something that I don't think has been addressed within this panel, and this is the creative industry. So people who can be able to create content and curate content, from YouTubers to graphic designers to animators to game designers or developers or even testers and all. So all this, as you can see, there are so many people, and even music producers. How can they be able to make use of this time? You'll see that most DJs right now are doing online sessions. Most artists are coming up with their own visual pictorials talking about the COVID and giving information packages about it and helping people translate what are the steps that they need to do. Animators are creating animations for kids to understand how to battle with COVID, and even giving an entertainment shots that, let us all unite. There's, I think, a really amazing clip that was done, an 8-minute clip, animation clip that was talking about all heroes unite, and these were DC characters and Marvel characters all coming together to just fight. Even Japanese manga being brought, all these heroes coming together just to fight one disease. So this is an opportunity for people to actually collaborate with people from across the world and be able to bring content that they've never had before. This is a time of so many places are offering free online courses that you can take for 6 weeks, a few weeks, a couple of hours. So you can go ahead and make use of those courses to better yourself, such that by the time we're bouncing back and you're on the top of that V, on the top of that U, you already have a new set of skills that have been refined and that will be able to address things that would be needed for the next the next peak that you're waiting for. So what are you going to do? So that's what I'd like to say.
Anyway, thank you so much. Huyo ni mwalimu ameongea. Thank you so much. I hope I'm not muted. Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks.
Actually, I'm just realizing we needed like 4 hours to run this session, but unfortunately we have to remain disciplined. George and Steve only gave me an hour to run the session. But before I hand over it to George, let me just read a few comments here. I mean, I'm picking some very quality comments that are coming in. And maybe this one, I'll want Timothy to respond to it, because Timothy, you are a senior in the organization where you are. There was a question here, somebody was asking, how do you deal with a senior or a manager who does not want to go digital? Timothy, in a minute.
Unfortunately, you cannot fight technology. So it's either it will sweep the manager if he's resistant to change. I think we have to conform to the reality. It's the new normal. Technology is going to sweep the person, whoever is resistant to change.
Very true. I mean, this is not the best way you can be an ally is just to move in the direction of change, as Timothy has put it. Let me also read another comment. I think it's also coming from Timmy saying, please use the downtime to reskill ourselves. Most institutions, including Harvard, have opened up some of their courses. Let me tell you, if you go online, you'll realize it is, as much as there is a crisis, it's also a grace period. We are coming across quality information, quality e-learns that you will never get just for free. One of the platforms, as somebody has put it here, is Harvard. The other day, so I think it's Emily now, one of our friend groups, he had shared some of those courses. I am a great person who always visits another platform called Udemy. There are many courses that you can just go with 1,000 shillings, buy 1 or 2 programs, and start reskilling yourself. Let me read another comment here. Great conversations here. It's clear COVID-19 has really changed our lives from 0 to 100 real quick. Very true. I saw a question. I'm trying to find if we could just answer that and then move away. Grid cloud computing is one of our solutions. Let me just, there was a question which I felt it will really resonate with all of us. Just thinking, this is from Peter Courier, just thinking, how do you proter your exams? I don't know, hey, that English is tough, whatever that word proter means. How do you proter your exams to maintain integrity, to prevent impersonation? And I believe this is a question that was directed to Dennis. Dennis, maybe in 30 seconds, how do you prevent impersonation when you're offering exams to your students to make sure that Mwakenya, online virtual Mwakenya, or even a non-student is the one doing that examination? How do you handle that, Dennis? Quickly.
Okay, so what we've been doing is that, one, we have a platform called Google Classroom that we use to administer the exams. So that's one, you need to have logged in on by yourself to actually answer those questions. And then secondly, there is the questions are usually more geared towards what you have been learning. So in case you'd have to have, if you're, let's say, talking about with somebody within the house, then that would be very difficult because they may not really fully understand what they're talking about. And remember, it's a test for what you have been learning within the class. And at times, some of them may be application questions that would require something that you have been learning in class. You see, and that already would put you in a point where you need to verify the information that you have been giving and be able to analyze it and put it back in a way that you should. And the other thing is, now for those students who may feel like they want to copy or take advantage of the anonymity of the web, we don't know who's taking the exams and all. Well, what you're having is that we do have a particular sessions. We do have particular sessions where students are meant to guide someone, an instructor, on what to do. Like you posed for a question, okay, how do you drive a car? It's more of a theoretical exam, but you're having it and you would have to now go about it that way. But what we have also done is that most of our heavy software-oriented exams, because we didn't have a required package for students to have, like you have to have a laptop by the time you come to school of a certain specification. So what has happened for now is that we have turned all our classes into theory. All our practicals will be done much later, where now you're going to have to do it in class examinations with the teachers and get to show your proficiency. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me just read a comment here from a participant called Eric Kelvin. Agreeing with a lot of things said here. When I look at our telecom space, for career point of view, my 2 cents on working from home. Number 1, he says, be very proactive with line managers. Number 2, be very aggressive with engaging team or stakeholders. Yeah, the fact that you're working at home doesn't mean now you are forsaking your team members. They're still your team members, they're online. If there are assignments that you're given that you need to reach out to them, don't assume because you can't see your line manager, you're not going to give the assignment on the time that it was agreed. You're going to be fired online. And I don't think that is the direction that you want to take. He also says, improve skills on planning resources ahead. One of the key things I want to tell us is take time to understand the skill of working from home. It does not come naturally. It is something that you must find and ask yourself, now that the COVID is here, how do I work from home? How do I move away from disruption? Because as somebody said, after the COVID, many organizations will be asking this question, do we need this entire office? And you'll realize then your home will become the next office. The other thing that Eric says, develop efficiency because everyone is on the phone. Then there is a participant called Fatma Muhaji. I can see you're saying that question was really good. I can't wait for the response. If you could just unmute your phone so that you ask the question, because I can't seem to get it, so that we finish with that as I read a question from Steve, which he was asking, in the event of unpaid leave, does the company need consent from the staff? What period should the unpaid leave go for? How should this be communicated to staff? Let me answer this because I'm in the HR space. The other day in the organization that I'm supporting, we had to send people on unpaid leave. And there are moments, situations will always determine. Of course, the legal perspective of it is in the normal scenario, you can never send a staff on unpaid leave until the two parties agree. But there are cases where now the organization needs to safeguard on its expenses and it realizes the only option that we are remaining with, rather than firing person, let us send them on unpaid leave. We shall retain them as our employees, but let them go on unpaid leave. So it is an issue that needs to be handled in a very delicate way. For me, it's not about the unpaid leave. It's about the manner that the communication is handled by HR and the business leaders, helping staff to understand the times and the moments that the business is going through and why that unpaid leave is very critical at that point in time. So it's an issue of you also coming in, being a business partner and just understanding where the employer is coming from. I remember today in the morning, I saw something interesting on one of those YouTube clips, somebody saying that for the first time, employers are becoming poor. And it's the truth, because employers are also losing out on their grip to offer employment. So when you realize that the employer is becoming poor as an employee, rather than offering a tool or being a tool of resistance, you need to be an enabler to help them find ways and means to navigate this rough patch. So I don't know if Fatma is online, just to ask the question, we can respond to it and then conclude.
Yeah, Steve, I'm here. It was actually answered already. It was the one posted to Dennis about the one you asked people, are they still learning, who's being a teacher, like how is his class is going on. Yeah, he already answered that.
Thank you so much. Then, George, will it be a good time for me to hand over to you? But before I hand over, let me remind us, in line with what the president is telling us and the government, please make sure you're either washing your hands with soap or you have a sanitizer. Please make sure when you're stepping out, you have a face mask. And I want to ask us, if you have some money, please make sure you buy a mask from a good shop. Don't buy masks from hawkers. Today, I just saw a video of somebody who was caught on Magadi River washing used masks. While you could think you're protecting yourself, you could be actually exposing yourself to more trouble. So even as we go through this phase, remember, we still need you post-COVID. So take care, make sure that you're spending this time to acquire a new skill, but as you're acquiring a new skill, keep yourself safe. That's all I could say at this point in time. It was great interacting with us. Right now, I can see 96 participants. George, I think it's time I hand over back to you. I know I've eaten 15 of your minutes.
Yes, thank you very much. While you've eaten the minutes, I see we are still at 96 participants, so I do not think they are angry, or if they are, they have not expressed it. But I've got a question from a Rotaractor in Addis, who, which I'd really like to be answered. It's a very short question. Let me see what she's said. So she is asking specifically to you, Stephen, working in an HR company and advising other carriers. I'm not sure I understand the question so well. I don't know if Kalkidan can unmute and ask it herself, because I don't quite understand the...
If she could unmute and just ask it, I hope we shall be able to grasp the accent.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it'll be fine.
He was telling me to be quick, that's why I had a hard time writing my question. Thank you for giving me this chance. My question was, as an HR consulting, mostly you were talking about other careers, how they're going to manage their work before and after the pandemic. So my question for you is, as an HR consulting company, you will manage a lot of companies which are going through this pandemic. So you're gonna have a lot of burdens on you. So how are you planning to be to manage that burden on you? And because you know, like, you're going to be in contact with a lot of companies and you're going to have a lot of works. So what are you planning on doing that? Thank you.
Well, I can see a sense of concern, how I'm taking care of myself. Thank you so much. It feels good to hear somebody asking about your welfare.
Also she's in the field.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I'm thankful for that. I think not just being in the HR, but I'm also a career coach. And one of the things I'll tell you, there is a moment when the coaching space almost gets into the line of therapy. And there are moments when I've felt like I am carrying some of the load of my clients. There are moments I sit there and I'm getting annoyed because of what a particular business leader is doing to their employees. And you can almost feel that anger and that emotional burden coming into you. So one of the things that I always do is, it's very funny. I think from my spiritual perspective, I'm one of those people who believes in a higher power called God. So one of the things that I always do is just to lay my burdens before God in prayer. I take time to pray, to seek spiritual rejuvenation, and to do, because I believe there are certain things that are beyond human nature. It just needs a spiritual or a divine hand to come in and help. The next thing, I have a team of people that I rely on. I open up to them. I spend time with them. I pour out let me call it my nonsense and my load on them. And these are people, some of them are actually on this network today, and they know there are moments we just spend time together to find out, how are you doing? How is your life? How is your business? Is there anything that we need to address? How is your mental health? And the other thing I also do is to make sure that when it becomes so heavy, I seek somebody who is more senior in the profession. It's almost like having a therapy session with those people, just to open and share with them some of the challenges I go through, and they'll tell you, okay, this is the direction you need to do, carry burdens that are sufficient. And so it's really something that's really helping me. And I believe I'm still fairly new in the space. As I grow, I'll keep knowing more and more ways of making sure that I keep my health, even as I offer service to other people, unless if you have one other option that you could throw my way, so that I could also make sure that during this COVID, because I know we are going to have a huge mountain of mental issues. And I'm asking myself, should I start preparing myself as a therapist and just move from the space of being a coach? So yeah, those are some of the things that I do. I don't know if you have anything in mind that could be of help to me. Hey, Steve or George.
Yeah. So Sylvia has raised her hand. I don't want to take us on too long, but I think I will let Sylvia ask her question, so she can unmute herself and ask that question. And then just so that I make sure that we do not go past time, I will ask the final question before she does, so that you take the two together and we're done. So a few people have asked about students who have students in places without good internet connections, like Mayushago. So how they are going to cope and study, or whether we are just meant to accept that this year a lot of students will be even further marginalized in terms of their academics, especially in the 844 system. So a few people have asked questions around that area. Then
well, yeah. Okay, then I could also hear the other question.
Yeah, from Sylvia.
Okay.
Sylvia, in 3, 2, 1. Okay, you can answer that and then we can close.
Okay, Gidraph, Mwaura, are you online? Could you respond to this question in less than a minute?
Yes, I think it's a valid concern. It's actually a challenge, but I'll approach it from two different perspectives. One, I'll give an experience myself. where I'm undertaking my master's program, and it has been through online throughout. And one of the things that the university did in the UK is that all the students who are on board were actually had to go home, and all the programs had to be done online. But okay, that is in a developed country. What happens in our country? It's a challenge because one, we don't have the infrastructure that extends to all the areas. And so I don't know how the teaching fraternity are going to handle that, or how are they going to manage that, or whether they are going to segregate and handle them differently. It's a question of wait and see of how they're going to administer these programs. But also on the other side, it could be an opportunity for investors in this kind of infrastructure to extend to these areas, because now one of the things that are going to happen post-corona is that digitalization will be the buzzword, and now this infrastructure needs to be extended across board. So it's a valid concern, it's a challenge, because without infrastructure, then these people means they will not be reached.
Yeah, it's very true. Some of these things demands an infrastructure, and I think I have a friend of mine who has a platform. Maybe it will be interesting for some of you just to check. And the other day, so he had started making programs even for primary school kids. It's called evisha.com. And maybe it could be one of those options, as much as we don't have a sufficient IT infrastructure in the rural areas. But if a parent could be having a phone that can have internet connectivity, they can log in and find some of those classes where now the parents can help their students. We only hope that the parents have the capacity also to help the students, considering the new curriculum that has been rolled out. I mean, Corona couldn't have come at a worse time as this.
Maybe Steve, sorry, let me just add something. I think my recommendation is there's still an opportunity whereby these marginalized areas, the teaching fraternity can use the government infrastructure, whereby these people could be they could be a liaison with the government offices in those places, because more often than not, this infrastructure, but only up to the government office level, but might not have extended that much. So it could be a coordination between the administration on the ground and now the teaching fraternity on how they can use the government infrastructure to administer their programs to these people. Yeah,
it's very true. Then I think I'll introduce Timothy just to say, but let me read something interesting that in Tinyari, I think he thought out of the box, and he said, in the rural areas, the radio helps because almost all homes have access to radio, especially in the local languages, programs on radios to teach. I think what Ntinyari is basically saying, even as the reality is we don't have the infrastructure well laid out in the areas, but there is something that we can use to reach out. So the question is, what can we use with what we have? And I think this is an interesting way of looking at it, where now we engage those local radio stations and we start asking them, can we now show value to the children in this area because we have no internet? Can we start running programs on radio? Timothy, you had something to say, then I will hand over to George.
I think I was going to actually contribute to the same point that Tinyari has put across. Most of us who school in rural areas, we remember that you had something called radio broadcasts. And I think that is actually the thing. So we could use content that is developed for radio. We could use content that is developed for television. We don't necessarily have to have internet connectivity to actually deliver education to the children in those remote and rural areas.
Great. As I hand over to George, let me just find out, my friend Lillian, did you join us? Lillian Bugwa?
Hi, Steve.
Hi. Yeah, you are. We thought you had gotten lost. Lillian is also a friend in the network, and Lillian works with Britam, and she was very quiet. Next time, we'll make sure you talk a lot. Karibu sana.
I had issues at first, but I got in. I've been here the last 1 hour, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So, George, I'll hand over back to you, and thanks a lot for the opportunity for my panel. Let's stick until George tells us to go.
Yes, thank you very much. Dennis seems to have had like a burning point to give because he kept his hand up. But so I'll give like 5 seconds there.
Okay, yeah, so there is some USSD packages that are available for ENESA. They have a package for you can just be getting daily texts that will have questions and some things that students can be able to read that doesn't need a smartphone to be able to use. That's one. Then two, there is supposed to be a rollout by Telkom for 4G interactivity that's supposed to be rolling out anytime, sometime soon. And then also there's another mobile company that will be coming in that's supposed to be giving, not giving, but they'll be supplying smart, what are they called? Smart feature phones, where it's just a basic phone, but you can be able to access the internet, you can WhatsApp and YouTube and everything that you can use online. They are available. They'll be available. Also, there are some publishers who have availed their packages for free, and they have bundled it with free bundles for Safaricom. This in this case is Longhorn Publishers, that students can be able to get into their portals, but at least that will cater only just for those ones who are within a connectivity area and can be able to at least have some internet interactivity. And also, just to further this, the talk about the infrastructure, it also beyond just the government offices, the other place that it has gotten to is at least some of the primary schools around, whereby they already are connected into, because it was a requirement to have all public schools to be connected to the internet. So some of them have already started being rolled out. So there are some that already have that access. It's just that it's locked onto the school. So it would have to be in a way that they can be able to broadcast that ability to use that Wi-Fi in a safe environment for people to actually access this educational items. I guess there is also a niche market that people can be able to use. But yeah, I like the radio idea. It makes a lot of sense. That's available to everyone across the board.
All right, thank you. So now that we're at this point, Fatma, this is a member of yours who wants to stab me in my inbox. She's got a question. Will you let her ask? That is Gathigia.
Wow, Gathigia.
She sent it to me on my...
Haraka, tumalize.
So the question is, for people with more creative careers, how do you go about reintroducing your services, as currently they're considered to be more of luxuries? How do you go about marketing yourself and not coming across as ignorant and insensitive to current issues? She seems to be very concerned with that, and it's a valid question.
Maybe
yeah,
let me
I
ask
think
Angela.
it was Dennis who had talked about this, or who, the Angela, the marketing aspect, and then Dennis had talked about the creative aspect of it. So I'm not sure, Steve, who would be best to deal with this.
All of them could do
So
it, but I will throw it to Angela, giving her 48.9 seconds.
Okay.
And that 2 seconds are gone.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is, because depending on what, I always say, you just don't go and develop a product. Yeah, you've got to really research and know the need that product needs to address, right? So it will take quite a level of research for you to do. Secondly, what platforms, who are you reaching out to? Who is your audience? Who are those people that you want to give that level of value with this product or service? Then how is it that you position yourself? Listen, this is not a one-day job. It has to be a long-term thing. You can start from somewhere, but you've got to keep at it. Yeah, it's not just about advertising. I mean, if it is you're writing those opinion pieces, if it is you're talking to those people, if it is you're joining calls like this, yeah, based on those groups where those people go to, so that they can be able to hear you out. I mean, you've just got to research where are these people found, but more so, what value do you want to add, and what challenges are you helping them address? More than that, let's take it offline, because that is a whole process. That's a whole idea, and people think it's a quick one-time solution. It's not. You've got to keep at it though, and I think it's possible. Yeah. Hope I've helped.
Yes, you have. All right, thanks. And based on the point you've just made, we received the profiles of all the guest speakers, and more importantly, links to their LinkedIn profiles. So if you'd like to take anything up offline, with the permission of our guest speakers, our panelists, we can hit you up on LinkedIn with questions.
Yeah, sure. You can.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Thank you very much. The vote of thanks is in the hands of the actual Stephen Ngetich. I hope he's still here.
The real.
Yeah, I'm here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for actually just logging into this particular meeting. So I'd like to actually take a vote of thanks to the speakers. For this session, we've had very diverse speakers. So it feels like if you're in a company, you actually feel like you've gone through all departments, marketing, finance, just to say a few. Another thing is the conversation has been really engaging, because at one point you're actually listening, and then when you go to the group chat, it's even interesting. Now you're torn between the two. Do you listen or do you read? Okay. And then I think a very big thank you to Steve actually getting the speakers for this particular session. I think with that, I would extend the vote of thanks to the president, Fatma Muhaji, the club president.
Thank you. Yes. Waza. They've said it all. Thank you so much. You guys, we are over 90 people. I didn't think that would be the case. Thank you so much. And I'm sure that's because of our panelists, as in the list was just as in on point. Thank you so much. Few shout outs. Mgandi from Kilifi, like I think their meeting literally just ended and then he's joined ours, as in support beyond. Thank you so much, Mgandi. That's president of Kilifi. Andrew Kipto, Masingala, of course, we have our country chair, Christine, our DRR, Samuel Karanja. Thank you so much. We have our mother club here. Whoop, whoop. Thank you so much. Thank you also to the people who sent their contributions. Asanteni sana. Sad money, happy money, any money, all money. Thank you so much. We appreciate it all. So thank you to our panelists. As in, we had people from as far as Qatar, Kisumu. Thank you so much. That was really something. And the internet has made us a global village. I use my hands weirdly. Thank you for understanding. Thank you everyone who's here, members, guests who came to just listen to the panelists, people from Ethiopia, all the way to TZ. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. We do not take this lightly. And ata Rongai. Yeah. Thank you. It never gets old. And even for the weird people who had to get kicked out because they could not keep quiet, let's reach out to them and tell them thank you. They still joined us for the few minutes. Yeah, asanteni sana. Our next meeting will be on 24th, so please join us. We shall send the link out as well. Thank you so much. So Steve, the issue of when you're telling us we should not get fired online, so we should be aggressive and all these things. Some people like thank you so much everyone for joining us. If there's nothing else, we can do the final toast. George, or is there anything else?
If anyone has happy money, I mean, I have happy.
Yeah, people actually sent. If they're still here, they we could have maybe like 3. Kristen, Mpenzi, if you're still here, you could say something for your happy money. Then Komen, Enoch, then Ismaina, G.
And I wanted to find
G.
Some people have behaved.
You need to find people? Okay.
But I did not kick
Sawa,
them.
I will give
I'd like
you.
to find 2 of them.
Okay, find them. I will.
All right. I would like to find Andrew Kipto for constantly distracting me with strange messages. He's an ADRR, not our ADRR though, from the Rotaract Club of Nairobi East. I'd like to find him for just being a terrible distraction.
Woo!
We will send our club treasurer after you.
Hello, everyone. May someone explain us or explain to me what the club entails? Because I'm just new to this club, don't know about it, but I was invited. So a brief introduction to what this club deals with, its location, or such kind of.
It's a good wonderful. Yeah. This is the part where we bombard our DRR. DRR is District Rotaract Representative. So Samuel Karanja, kindly unmute yourself if you're still here. This is the part where you shine.
I have not used my
Salimia wa Kenya and everyone. Is he still here? Samuel?
Yes, Fatma.
Yes, kindly explain to our guests what Rotaract, briefly, escape, briefly, we know you. Kindly explain Rotaract, what we do, and yeah. Thank you. And also who you are, your position, kindly.
Okay, thank you. My name is Samuel Karanja. My ID name is SK. I am a member of Rotaract. So briefly for the guests, in like the fewest words possible, Rotaract is a global organization of young people between the ages of 18 and when you stop defining yourself as young. So we have different clubs around the world, and in Kenya we have some 80 plus clubs. So each of the clubs has 30, 40, 50, 100 members, and they decide, we as young people who are friends, who are family, what would we do to be of benefit to our community and also to be of benefit to our members. So we have programs for community service, and we have programs like this fellowship to educate ourselves and learn what the world is doing and how we can best position ourselves. And then we have a lot of fun as friends and as best friends and as family. Yes, so that's simply it. Global organization for young people, different clubs in different locations, but we are united by community service and an opportunity to be of service to each other and to benefit ourselves. I think that is few words as possible. Thank you, Fatma.
Thank you, SK. Yeah, so I hope that helped you. Actually, to all our guests, I hope that has at least shed some light about Rotaract, what we do, what we're about. So hope there's Rotaract Langata, there's Rotaract District 9212. You'll find out so much more. Like every country, no, okay, not every, okay, almost everywhere in Kenya, there's a Rotaract club. And if you're not in Kenya, I'm sure there's still Rotaract somewhere. Yeah, so we're everywhere, we're in the whole world. Yeah. Thank you so much. So George, are you done finding people?
Yes, I have since forgiven them because some people have been very kind as to give anonymous happy dollars, such as Andrew. So I've forgiven people.
Anonymous.
Yes, I just decided to throw that away. All right. So this meeting has been recorded. We will upload it to our YouTube channel. And so anybody who would like to see, to follow the discussion further, you can find it on our YouTube channel. Thank you, Fatma.
Yes, we have a YouTube channel. Thank you so much, everyone. Kenya, outside Kenya, thank you so much. We are humbled by this. As in, I don't even know what to say. I'm even speaking English. That should say something. I think I've like the worst English inside. Can you see the sadness? Anyway, so yeah, thank you so much, our guests. Hope we'll see you again, interact more. Thank you, everyone who sent the money. Yeah. What were your end, Kina Musabi? Yes, we were taking Happy Mbao. So if you think that's what would have locked you out, it's not. Just do your thing. Do you? Yeah. Also, is it weird that I was wearing my chain? I don't know.
I was going to fine you for not wearing it, so it's good you wore it.
Yes, I'm a weirdo. I miss meetings. I miss outside. I miss life, the Rotaract way. Anyway, so if that's all, we can do the.
I have been asked for a selfie. Someone has asked if we can do the selfie.
Yeah, so we do the selfie before the final toast. After? Yeah, okay. So thank you so much, guys. We do not take this for granted. Thank you, everyone. I can't say thank you enough. Gracias, asante. Yeah, asanteni. Thank you. Erokamano.
You're welcome. Kindly allow us to exit.
Okay. Okay? So no, we are going to do the final toast, and then people can leave if that's okay.
Okay,
yeah,
that's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So I hope I got all the clubs right because there were more than 15. So if I missed it, I'm very sorry. So let's just put your right hand across your kifua, chest. Yes, Trudy. Yes, girl. So in Rotaract clubs of Karura, Youth Zone, Hurlingham, Nairobi Parklands, JKUAT, MMU, JKUAT Pwani Central, KU, Naivasha, Kitengela, Wodiamado, Ongata Rongai, Maryland, Young Professionals of Dar es Salaam, Kilifi, Nairobi Central, MUST, that's Masinde Muliro University of Science, University of Science and Technology, and Rotaract Club of Karen, yes, and the amazing Rotaract Club of Langata. Waza! Yeah, I forgot Nairobi East, sorry, Nairobi East. So thank you so much to Rotary and Rotaract the world over.
Rotary and
Rotaract the world over.
Thank you so much. To the clubs, nimesahau, I am so sorry. Okay, now we can take the selfie and then people can leave.
Yes.
The selfie. Watu wa kufanya Don't Trash Challenge. Woo! Damn, Christian girl. Mpenzi.
Okay, there are people who lack both. You don't need to keep your hand across your chest. We're done with that part. So there are people who either who don't have avatars and don't have, their video is not on, or they are taking this meeting in the dark. Please get closer to a source of light. And I will take a screenshot. Yes, I see more people. I will take a screenshot in 3, 2, 1.
My hand is still
Please
on
remember it does not require sound.
Can we just have a second selfie, please? Because I doubt the first one.
Okay. Give me a sec. All right. You know there are 3 screens, so this is going to be very difficult. I'm taking one of each. All right. Second screen. Here we go. Please look alive. And you can start moving again. Don't worry.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Screen. Okay, the third screen, everyone has no video. So I'm just going to go back to the first one so that Fatma can redo her thing. All right. 3, 2, 1, smile. All right.
Thank you. I forgot Nairobi East and Muthaiga North. Thank you so much, guys.
So you can leave it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. I thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists. These guys were awesome. Thank you so much. Leave now. Yes, you can leave. Thank you so much.
Where are the drinks?
Chai wageni. Thank you, guys. Oh my God. Thank you. This was something. Mother Club, you guys are the bomb. Andrew, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Janet, everyone.
Also, I think Nicholas Borer was here too.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, he said he would be here.
Yes, he did.
Thank you so much, guys. You can leave now at your pleasure. Thank you. Next week we're having a party, so we'll tell you guys more.
Gee, why the suspicious look?
Wow, G.
Hey, Kaleche.
Cute. Thank you.
Miss selfie.
Oh,
Wow.
Ni life, maze.
Hey, leo Nyazira hadi hajatuvalia dera. Wow. Na ukakiwa. Snow on mute atukusikie.
Ndio nimerealize. Nimevaa sweta juu. Sitaki msikie. Tuna watch Wahindi wanaongea Kikuyu. Sitaki msikie.
Oh my God.
Listener, mna watching hizo vitu.
The first time I saw that thing, I thought I am tripping. I was like, wait. Also anasema, anasema aterere or something like that. I was like, what?
Imagine. Inakuanga funny. Hadi unashangaa. Yaani unaona Mwindi anaongea Kikuyu. That's the life. Jibu bado umeshtuka.
Kitu yote makes sense. Mtu anaongea